On February 14th, 2008, investors from around the world joined Ceres at the United Nations in New York to address the most pressing environmental challenge of this century: global climate change.
More than 450 investors managing about $20 trillion are at the UN today for an investor summit on climate risk.
There's an incredible amount of energy here today, Maria. There is a sense of excitement and also purpose. Keep in mind, this is the third summit that the United Nations has held. 3.5 years ago, at the first one, the amount of money in the room was under $1 trillion. To date, it's $20 trillion. Clearly, this is a topic where there is critical mass and investors care.
The message investors heard was clear. The global warming crisis is huge.
Climate change affects the availability of water around the planet, the productivity of farms, forests, and fisheries, the formation and dispersion of air pollutants, the damages we have to expect from storms, floods, droughts, wildfires, the property losses we have to expect from sea level rise, the expenditures we have to make on engineered environments.
The problem continues to get worse. We need to act and act sooner. There are real solutions.
The problem of climate change won't just disrupt our environment. It will ripple across companies, industries, and investment portfolios around the world. But opportunities exist today to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and slow the Earth's warming.
What could we do about it? Certainly, we can and we must reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases and soot from the energy sector.
It's a much simpler problem if we rely on technology. Even today, we can get power generation from solar thermal cheaper than nuclear.
We need to create the right kinds of incentives for utilities to reduce energy demand consumption. We need to raise corporate standards of efficiency. The institutional investors have a large role to play in insisting on metrics for that and delivery of that.
Ceres has been at the forefront of the climate issue for nearly 20 years, working with companies and investors to create sustainable solutions that will minimize the risks of climate change. And many companies are already responding. State-driven policies in California, for instance, have spurred the power company PG&E to invest billions in energy efficiency programs that are cutting electricity bills and reducing global warming pollution at the same time.
Our performance on energy efficiency has allowed us to avoid building 24 large power plants. Other states can make the same steps and leaps if they create and align the right incentives to really unlock the potential for energy efficiency.
Large institutional investors are also taking steps to reduce their financial risks from climate change.
We own over a $20 billion portfolio, and we're halfway in something that we call our Green Wave Initiative, in which we're committed to a 20% reduction over a 5-year period of the energy footprint in our buildings.
There is an investor network on climate risk that started this debate here at the United Nations 5 years ago. It is this group of people that came together and said there are risks to our portfolio. We are going to redefine good governance. We're going to take this issue on from a policy perspective. We're going to make changes every day.
Investors representing nearly $2 trillion in assets released a climate action plan at the UN summit that calls on investors to boost investments in energy efficiency and clean tech and require tougher scrutiny of carbon-intensive capital projects, such as new coal-fired power plants.
Global climatic disruption entails both big dangers for firms and investors that make bad choices or no choices, and big opportunities for firms and investors who act creatively and aggressively and make money doing it.
The more that the investment community, the private sector, the industrial aspects of the world, the very large multinationals, the more they understand or are engaged in the climate issue, the easier it will be for nations to come together and come to understand what the political leadership has to do.
We need to be looking to the future, and there are enormous opportunities in alternative energy and all sorts of industries that are going to be taking advantage of the impacts of climate change.